Am I right? I think that's who it was. Anyway, I had in my office, I said, okay, you guys, let's meet Saturday. I shared with the staff about the possibility. So I said, I'll meet you at that site at 8 o'clock. So I got there, and yeah, everyone was there. And I had told them, I said, bring shovels and picks. I said, we got to get this thing going because this was in the spring, and we needed a campus by the fall, okay? So I can't remember who it was, but I want to say it was Pat McReynolds. Had a shovel, and he kind of shoved it in and just, And then Rick Searles being who he was, he gets a pick, and he knows he's going to break through like that, So he takes a big swing, and I never saw him shake like this ever. And he looked at me, he says, hey, what are we going to do? And there's always Ted Ferguson. He says, why don't we pray? I said, smart aleck. But anyway, we did that, and I'm not exaggerating this, and then I'm going to go on. That's the only story I'm going to tell. We heard this clank, clank, clutter, clutter, clank, clank, coming around the corner there at Cottonwood onto Lincoln, and we looked up, and all of a sudden there was a tractor with a backhoe and a front loader. And he had a little white terrier with him, just about this tall, And all of a sudden, he literally skids to a stop, and he just looks at us like. And then all of a sudden, he backs up, runs over the curb, comes up next to us, and he says, what in the are you guys doing? And I was so shocked. No, I can't remember who answered him, but I don't know who it was, but said, well, we got to dig this out here. We're going to use this. We have to get rid of all this soil and put it, along the side, the perimeter, and then it's got to be in a mound, and then it has to be sprinkled. And he says, and you're doing it with these? And I said, I told them they couldn't do that. No, I didn't. Maybe I did. Anyway, so he says, get out of my way. So he brings that tractor over there, and he gets out backhoe. And you guys, one of you can correct me, but it probably wasn't 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, that guy had that whole thing dug out and a berm built on the side. And the last load he dumped, he just turns the tractor back to the street, goes onto the street, and heads up, to the west on Lincoln. And we just looked at each other like, what was that? And we kind of jointly came to the realization that was an angel. It had a little bad language, but that was an angel. But anyway, hey, that was the beginning, okay? And there are so many stories. But God is so faithful. He's so faithful, and he's so good. And every story just gets a little bit better and a little bit better. The two ladies that just, I didn't contact them. They contacted me and said, hey, we have something that we want to talk with you about. And so I went there, and these were two older ladies that had migrated from Europe after the Second World War, and what they said to me was, listen, we've had this 25 acres that we bought as soon as we got here with our savings, and we never have known what to do with it. And they said, we have prayed about it, and God never has just told us what to do with it. And I'm kind of thinking, how do I break in here, But I didn't. I just listened, and they said, we've heard about what's going on at Woodland Christian, and we'd like to give you that acreage. Okay, so you put that acreage with the acreage that Bangoric ended up giving us after he turned down a $1-point-something million offer on it. Amazing, just amazing. But I mean, those are all wonderful things, wonderful things. But I want to take you and then I'm going to bring Dr. Phillips up. There's a verse in 1 Thessalonians 2:8, I think it is. It says, we were well pleased to impart to you not only the gospel, but our own lives. And, you know, I have never forgotten that. That, you know, what a privilege and what an honor and what a responsibility every single one of us have had and have of not only sharing the gospel, which is, you know, totally priority, but it's sharing our own lives and investing in people. And I just want to commend you that you have done a wonderful job of that. God has blessed this school, grown it out of more than I could have ever imagined, or I think all of us could have imagined. And I'm so humbled by that. But one more introduction. Dr. Phillips, you come on up here. When we were about to do the launch, trying to launch the high school, that was a huge, huge undertaking. And we all weren't even in agreement about that because there's so much work. And so Melissa was on staff with us. So I knew Dr. Phillips. Dr. Phillips is a neurologist, pediatric neurologist, smarter than all get out. I mean, smart, okay? So we had a little sit down, and at the end of that, he says, well, Jack, why don't you let me launch this high school? He says, I'll give you 3 years. I had him sign, no. I mean, he gave us 3 years of his life to do just that. And I know he had lots of help, and he's probably going to share that. But he was such an answer to prayer for such a time as that. And God ordained him to do that. He's smart. He's hardworking. He never stopped. He never stopped. Never let anything go unsettled. And he had a lot of help. You know, Diana Ropke helped him a great deal. Many helped. But it's such an honor for me to have him here today. And just to share, he's a godly man. I love him so much. Dr. Steve Phillips. Thanks.
Well, what an honor to be here today and to speak between two hugely godly people. And I'm not sure why I'm here, actually, because there's been so many people out here that's been with the school so much longer than I have, and I was only here for a brief moment. And these other people have been way longer. And of course, we were all given 10 minutes to talk, but of course, Jack went way beyond the 10 minutes. But he's been here so much longer, I'll just take a little bit of time so that we can be on time. When we started the high school, our verse was Jeremiah 29:11. And that, everybody knows that verse. That's a verse where the Lord promised us that he's going to prosper us and not harm us and give us a plan of a hope and a future. You know, when you think about that, it's in God's timing, right? And God's timing is limitless. So he blesses us in his timing. But that timing could have been in our past. Like, a lot of people here today were part of Woodland Christian School, and they may be the time that they were blessed, God was blessing them, maybe in past. And look at what's happened to the Woodland Christian School now. I mean, that was the blessing now, or maybe it's now that God is blessing you. And look what's going to happen in the future. And the other thing I was thinking about is maybe God has blessed you, but it will see forth after you've left this earth into heaven. And you know, God's blessing is boundless. See, it may be a blessing that you will receive, or maybe it'll be you and a group of people, like the school will receive. There was a lot of challenges that we had to go through to get the high school started, and we had so much support. We had from First Baptist Church, Woodland Christian School, and you know, Woodland Middle School, we got so much support for them, and I'm totally appreciative of that. And of course, we got Woodland United Fellowship, because we got to use their facility, and you know how much it cost? Free. Yeah, that was such a blessing. And we had family and students who were willing to jump into high school then, because see, it was a risk. The pathway to college then was through a high school. And that was a big jump because in Woodland Christian School has gone to the 9th grade, and then they hop over to Woodland High School, and then the pathway to college was through them. So that was great. I'm going to tell a few random stories, and I'll keep them short because Jack's stories were hugely long. So we'll keep them short so I can keep on time. Yeah, but I remember the first day of school, I was running around campus, and I saw students standing in line, except for there was no line. And that poor student, I thought, oh, she was new to the school, and she's standing in a line. There was no line. The next day we had a retreat. You know, my wife works at a Christian school. They don't call it a retreat. They call it an advance, and she says, we don't retreat. But anyway, she was standing in line by herself. The next day we went on a retreat. We actually went on a raft ride. And the idea of this retreat was to get the new students introduced to the old students. So we went river rafting on the American River. And of course, on my raft, I fell out of the raft twice. The second time I fell off the raft, the guide pulls me and he said, Dr. Phillips, don't fall out of the raft again. But at the end of the raft trip, that student had like 8 friends. And that was a cool thing about working at Woodland Christian School. I'm sure it's true in the past. I'm sure it's true now. It was certainly true then. You were only a new student for like 4 hours. And then you had all these friends. And the next day, I'm sure I saw her, and she had all these friends around her. She was happy, and suddenly she was only a new student for a day. Now, you had to gain the students' respect. And about a couple weeks in, the pastor comes over to Pastor Morgan. He said, you know, Dr. Phillips, there's sunflower seeds all over the campus, and if you can't clean that up, I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to continue the school here. So then I talked to student bodies. I said, if I find sunflower seeds on you, you're going to be suspended. So one of the students came up to me, and he said, Dr. Phillips, that's like if we find marijuana on us, you're going to suspend us. And that's just wrong. There's nothing illegal about sunflowers. This is our freedom. This is our independence. He said, it's like if you found marijuana on it. And I said, no, it's worse. And he said, what do you mean it's worse? Because if we find marijuana, we're probably going to expel you or suspend you. But if you keep having sunflower seeds on the ground, our whole student body, we won't have a place to have a school. The other thing the students said, which I thought was very interesting, they said, can Woodland High students come over and visit us at lunch? Because we had a closed campus, and Woodland High is just right 2 blocks down the road. And I said, I don't know about that. So we drew a line in the parking lot. And we had a faculty on the line. And so we said, well, they can come on one side of the line, and you guys can go on the other side of the line. Now, some of the things we did probably are not acceptable to you guys. So if you have any problem with it, email Jack Hamlin. He was the boss then. So anyway, I said, okay, you can be on one side of the line. They can be on the other side of the line. I said, is that a good idea? I don't know. But you know, that whole line stayed the whole way. And they respected that line. Now, year 2, the motto was, failure's not an option. Now, that's when the plan was to move to Mattmore. Year 1, we had about 80 students. Year 2, we had about 140 students. But Mattmore was, the wonderful people of First Baptist Church, volunteer people built that campus. And other few things I'm sure they ventured out and stuff, but there's all kinds of issues that happen. You know, this problem, that problem, the pump here, this permit there, and that. And we would go over, we're going to be a little delayed here. We're going to be a little delayed there. I'm not sure we're going to be ready for the school to start there in September. And I would go over there and I say, look, guys, failure is not an option. Because if you're not ready, we're going to be having the school in the park, or we're going to be on the street somewhere. Because we had looked at other facilities. Nobody would take 140 high school students. Oh, it was so tense. And it was down to the very last minute. Are we going to, and I went over there all the time and said, failure is not an option. But luckily, it was a miracle of God. God was faithful, and we got over and we started. Now, the other challenge was accreditation. The pathway to college then was two things. You had to be accredited, and you had to have UC certification. At that point, Woodland Christian School has never gone through accreditation. And, there's a group of families and students that'll say, we're going to stay with Woodland Christian High School until the point either they get accredited or not. And then we're out of here. And that was probably 2/3 of our student body at that point. So we had to go through accreditation. So we did all this thing, we worked all the hard, and those were the good old days. So my wife and I would stay up all night in the makeshift high school office, and we'd go through all these computers, getting all set, and my two younger kids, I don't know where my older daughter was at. She was out with her friends. Kids would sleep on the floor of the high school office while we stay up all night. But I used to bribe the high school kids. Is that reasonable? What about you administrators? Is it okay to bribe your high school kids? I mean, one time, our girls' team was 14-0, and Waldorf, remember, their girls' team had the longest league winning record of any high school team in America, and they're coming to our home to play us. And I said, if we get 70 kids at halftime in a girls' game, I'll give you guys half day off on Friday. Is that an okay thing to do? If you guys have a problem, email Jack Hamlin. So yes, we got 70 kids there. We lost, but anyway. So I told our kids, if you guys behave when the accreditation team comes, a group of our naughty kids. See, I went to them and I said, okay, then I will take you to In-N-Out and to the Guitar Center because they love to go to the Guitar Center. So sure enough, the head of the accreditation committee that came to our campus, he was the retired superintendent of the Pleasanton Unified School District, which is a big, huge school district. And at lunch, sure enough, he beelines over to these group of behaviorally challenged kids. And I watched him. He just went right there. And Woodland Christian kids, they stand up when they have to. And they were so respectful. They looked him in an eye. They answered all his questions. And boom, another miracle of God's faithfulness, we got full accreditation on our first round, which normally never happens. You get on probation. And so that was a miracle. And those families stayed with us. We almost lost 2/3 of our student body. Now, the third year is something I call Inspire to Excel. And that was how we're going to help our students go to college. And we had a lot of kids that were they want to go to UC, the state colleges, Christian colleges. How are we going to get them off and go to the colleges that they want? And how are we going to keep our teachers? All you educators out there, remember, especially if you're junior high or high school, by the end of the year, you're hanging on by a thread. And there's always some difficult students, which we already heard a little bit about. But we had this one student named Cody. And he could drive, and I taught too, And by the way, another thing, I coached. In fact, I had this I coached girls JV basketball. At that point, that's probably the lowest level of coaching you can do, girls JV basketball. And I had this one basketball player named Jamie. And, she is the sweetest, kindest person. And by the way, she really made this problem student Cody probably what he is today, but she was so kind. She would give the other team the ball. And so I actually said, Jamie, could you carry the ball all around school and just hold on to it? Don't let any other student take the ball from her. And she did, and she did. It worked out good. But Cody could drive any teacher to the wall, where I think some of the teachers probably had to have a psych evaluation. But Cody was, now I heard he turned out okay, was a pastor somewhere in town. But, those kind of kids could just drive you crazy. Yes, yeah. But yes, those kids, they're tough. They are tough. All right, so, but, I said failure's not an option, but we did fail. And, one thing we didn't accomplish was getting a football team. Who was the first people that tried to get a football team? That was me. Well, no, it's my team. Yes, we had a football coach, and we had a 10-season schedule, but we couldn't get it off. And if we could get it off, the football stadium would say Doug Brown Football Stadium. But it doesn't say that, so I'm going to introduce the next speaker. That's Justin Smith. Now, by the way, he came to Woodland Christian as a middle school teacher. Then he started the football program, and then he became the administrator. And so, there's some cool things about him. He's an awesome DJ, and I don't know if he's going to dance up here on the stage, but he's a great dancer too. So let's welcome him on the stage.
All right. Well, I had heard a lot. I arrived right after Dr. Phillips had left, and several others had been called to ministry elsewhere. I heard so much about Dr. Phillips, the doctor, the intellectual. I did not hear about Dr. Phillips, the stand-up comedian. So I am very impressed. That was awesome. Jack was calling out a lot of tallies, and about half of those names are friends of mine now. So I need to reevaluate my friendships. But I had the great honor and privilege of being here for 14 years. So I'll share a little bit about my time. I've been given 10 minutes. So rather than cut some things out, I'm just going to talk twice as fast, okay? So hopefully you can understand what I'm saying. But I had some things prepared. But before I get there, during the worship time, I was really moved. I mean, anybody that has given any time to this school or effort or energy or passion, and with the love of Christ, I think you probably feel the same way. I mean, for me, it's in some ways feels like a dream. My kids are still here. They're 9 and 11. They're loving their experience. I'm a parent now. My wife teaches. So when she comes home with any issues with administration, I just go, hey, not my problem, but they got a tough job. So just remember that. I just think back on those 14 years. And I see, we've got up here, we got Bobby, who was in my 7th grade homeroom class my first year. His wife, Maddie, he had a major crush on her. It took him a while to win her over. But they're, of course, now serving ministry here. Jamie's up there. We heard about, obviously, Jamie and Cody. Cody was the first chapel speaker I ever heard. My first year teaching, we were out in the maintenance building. That's where we had chapel that year. And it worked, I guess. And Cody, obviously now thriving, leading ministry here is thriving. In Woodland, it's just incredible. And all the faces, Judy Baylard's here. I would not have been successful in administration without her. Lisa Taylor, my right hand. Becky Searles, who had the, I think, desperate need to hire me. It was 2 weeks before the school year started. We'll kind of pick up there. But I remember I wanted to teach. I was coming back from the Bay Area to Davis. I'd gone to UC Davis. All my Christian friends were here. And I'd missed the cycle to start a credentialing program. And so a friend of mine had gotten hired, a couple. Sam Sorbello's here. She was hired as well. And they said, hey, you don't have to have your credential in place to start. Now, you're going to have to work toward it, but you can start teaching there. I was like, great. So he recommends me to Becky. I think she's like, all right, we need you to teach 7 different subjects. And we need a middle school athletic director, and we're going to pay you about half of what you were making. How does that sound? I said, amen, let's do it. I love the Lord. And then I had to meet with the pastor at the time. We won't get into all the church stuff going on. But he's asking me, like, okay, well, what distinguishes a Christian school? I was public school my entire life. Now, I'd really come to sincere faith in the Lord in college, but I was at even a public university, UC Davis, right? So I go, I don't know, Jesus, is that, and they were like, great, yep, we need a teacher, you're on, and so I started and immediately just felt the difference at Woodland Christian, being able to share the most important part of our lives, right, our faith in the Lord. How do you help young people, how do you work with kids without being able to share that? I don't know. I mean, there's people that do it, and God bless them in public school ministry that are doing that, but I didn't know how to do that. And so to be able to share my faith openly and transparently with students and encourage them that way, and so many families just embraced me, adopted me. Marla pretty much adopted me, and many others. And so it was like, this is where God wants me to be now. But I didn't realize God was calling so many of you that poured and built this school onto other ministry or other locations. So Diana Ropke, I remember, she was running a tight ship at the high school. It seemed great. Then she left. Becky Searles hired me. She was awesome. Rick was the high school athletic director, so he was training me, and then they left. Jack had just left. All I heard was, Jack Hamlin is the greatest person in the history of the world. I'm like, that's great. Where is he? We don't know. He's not here. I mean, they knew, but, it was just, but it felt that way. It was like, okay, it was awesome to hear the history and what God had done at the ministry. I was all fired up, but it was clear that there was a transition happening. I was 23 years old, so I didn't know anything about anything other than, I could put a lot of time and effort in. But it was a challenging season, right? Enrollment, I remember there were like 2 classes at each grade level at the middle school my first year. By the second year, there was only 1 at the 7th. And then by the next year, there was like 1 at each. And enrollment was declining, and, there were some challenges. The church was facing challenges. And so it really got to a point, and this is funny too, because I started the football program amidst that time. So I think you said you had 140 high schoolers year 2, which was probably only through about juniors, right? Because then, and then you would, that's about, 45 a class, give or take, right? So you'd have had about 200 something total or almost 200 high schoolers by 12th grade, right? Well, we were down to about 100 students of the whole high school when we started football. I think 60% were girls. So we had 40 able bodies, We did field a team of about 27 players the first year, and then by the time they realized, really what football was about, we had about 16 the second year. But, we got it going, and the Lord blessed that. But there was a real question of what's going to happen. What's going to happen to the church? What's going to happen to the school? And there's a lot of people that stepped in. There was a school board created. Many of those people, Dave Hargadon's here. Several. I know Mark Wareham, who's here, was a part of the early board. Dan King. Several others. If I forget any, please forgive me. But they stepped in and they did. Debbie Simpson, for sure. She was doing all the real work. But there were a lot of people that stepped in and created we had to set up an entire kind of new entity. We had a 501c3 that we could use. But all, policies, different things had to all be kind of recreated. And there were a lot of board meetings that would go on until about midnight, 2 nights a week, every week for many years. But we were trying to get this going. The church blessed the separation of the school and the church. What a privilege, the 150th anniversary last weekend celebration. LifePoint has a campus that meets in this building. I mean, if you think about the beauty of how that relationship has continued, it's incredible. But we get going. So we start that first year, and so they were, again, I've always been hired or promoted out of desperation. So I was brought in, it's true, and I'll take it, whatever. But they hired me 2 weeks before school started because they didn't have a teacher for all these subjects. Desperation, and I was happy to do it. And then they were trying to find administrative leadership for that first year as an independent Christian school. Well, again, everybody had left. There weren't very many people hanging around. And so I was 26. I didn't know anything. So I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. I'll throw my name in the hat. And I had been serving in a lot of different capacities. And they're like, all right, Justin, you're not ready, obviously, to be the administrator. But we're going to do this co-leadership team. So Lila Lemonager, she was our preschool director. Michelle Booth, who did a tremendous job with curriculum at the high school, she was kind of head of curriculum. And then Doug Brown, who was mentioned, and if they want to swap my name out for his on the football field, I totally support that. He was amazing, almost 30 years of athletic leadership there. Doug was the high school principal. So we did that for a year, and then God called Doug elsewhere. so then, again, desperation. They promoted me to administration, where I served for 10 years at the school. We were down to 362 students when we became independent. We then shortly became the fastest growing private Christian school in California for the next 7 years in a row. So we were growing by, 20% a year. We were adding 40 to 80 kids throughout the whole school. And it wasn't because we were doing anything special, right? It really was about getting back to what the school had always been and what all of you here had been. Jack would greet people in the crosswalk. So I'm like, I'm going to greet the kids in the crosswalk, and I'm going to get to know them, and we're going to get to know them, and we're going to get to know their strengths, gifts, and abilities, what God has given them, and we're going to help them maximize those things, and we're going to care about it, and we're going to care about our faith in the Lord, and we're going to have fun, and we're going to have joy doing it, and God just, when we live out our Christian faith, when the Holy Spirit moves and acts through us and gives life to those around us, then great things happen as a testament to this 50th anniversary. So we're growing, and we faced then some of the similar challenges that Jack was talking about, space. We had an elementary campus that we were growing out of, and so we needed to build a new campus. We started the project, and since the church was going to stay where they were at, we got to redraw the site map here, and so we drew what is now that site map. Well, first we drew another one, and then as soon as the ink had dried on what we were going to do, we had too many students for that plan. So we had to redraw it. So we start redrawing it, and we had these dotted lines in for additional classrooms. And by the time the ink had dried on that plan, they were solid lines because we needed the classrooms. And so when the school got this, when they separated from the church, we got all this property, huge blessing, and then we inherited some debt. So we were not a wealthy organization. We had 0 years of credit history because we were brand new. And so we had to raise the money to build that campus, or else we weren't going to have enough space for kids. So we were planning. We had an architect involved. He did it. He drew the plans up. So the architect, he gives you a budget estimate, okay? And if you've ever built anything, you kind of brace for that, right? Now, he worked primarily with public schools. The budget estimate was about $15 million to build the elementary school, okay? We had debt and no money. And we were like, all right, thank you for your recommendation. We will consider this. And then we're like, and then we go, Eric Simpson, hey, I think we got about $3.5 million. What do you think we could do? Jim, where can we cut some costs here? And, we laugh, but through prayer and just through God's working, and through a lot of people like that, a lot of people in the trades, in the building community that stepped up, volunteered their time. I mean, Eric's a nice guy, but you get him negotiating with builders, he's a bulldog, I'm telling you. Jim Morrow's always a bulldog, so that was helpful. But the contractors love him. But we got the site work done for under $2 million. We got all those classrooms. The classrooms, each one was like 20 grand, something crazy. We did all the classrooms, everything. We built that project for about $3.5 million, that entire campus that now houses about 400 students. Just incredible. So things are going along, growing. We would have other moments where people would donate for modulars when we needed more space and different programs here and there. But then what kept coming up was, hey, we don't have a gym on campus. We don't have a performing arts building on campus. We don't have a place where we can seat more than, we were packing out what's called the Union, if you get a chance to look at it. We could only fit about 150 kids in there. Even that was tight. And our high school was, getting to 200. Our middle school was getting larger. Elementary, we had 400 kids. We're trying to fit them in the multi-purpose room. And so we had these big projects, but again, we have no money, right? So we're praying. We're trying to go, hey, do we go after bond? Do we get a bunch of debt? And that, you get leverage. That's how a lot of schools, businesses fail. And so we were, just not really excited to do that. So Dave Hargadon, who had come on board, that's a whole other miraculous story of how I convinced him to leave his pension early and come join us at Woodland Christian. He still, I think, thinks through that often. But we get an email, and it's like this Nevada Community Fund. And they're like, hey, we'd like to meet with you and Dave. When can you meet? And it's the summertime. They want to meet in like July. And I'm like, well, Dave spends like 3 months at a vacation home in Maine. He's kind of a big deal. I don't know if we can get him around. I mean, I'll be around. I'll probably be putting carpet in. But yeah, no, we found a date. It was like right around the 4th of July. And so we set up. And so this person's going to come, this woman's going to come to give us this donation. Well, she doesn't tell us how much it is. It's anonymous. The donor wanted it to be anonymous. And so we start talking, and we're like, how much do you think it's going to be? I think we're like, oh man, $100,000? Could you imagine? That'd be great. And then we're kind of like, and this probably sounds terrible, but I'll explain. But we're like, not the worst, obviously, but a tough gift would be if it's $1 million. Well, why? You think $1 million? That's great. Well, it'd be just enough where the donor's going to expect you to do something awesome with it, but not enough to actually do anything with it. And so we're like, well, oh man, what if it's $1 million? And then we're like, well, let's not even think about it. So we get this meeting, and this woman, she's like, we don't know what this organization's about. It's anonymous. And she gets into her little spiel, and then she goes, you know what? I have the good fortune of presenting you with the largest donation we've ever presented anyone, $2.5 million. And we're like, what? and the donor wants it to go to the Performing Arts Center. And we're like, we just, of course, we just about broke down. We're speechless. I think Dave fainted. I know I fainted. I have a history of doing that, as Sam knows. But yeah, we're just overjoyed, right? And now we're like, okay, we think we can build this Performing Arts Center. But that was actually because we needed a preschool, gym, learning center, performing arts center. And the gym was kind of number one because our lease at the fairgrounds was getting a little tenuous. And then the performing arts center was like just would have been like an amazing blessing, but it wasn't our top need. So now we're like, okay, we're going to build this awesome, amazing building, and we still need a gym. And what had happened along the time, as this was going on, we had received interest from some of the leadership at Yochadihi. And for those of you that don't know, there's some really strong believers that are in the community there that love the Lord and love this school, and started a lot of the students from that community had started coming to Woodland Christian. There's still some here, and it just, they wanted to help. So they had approached us like a couple years before, and they had said, hey, we'd like to help the school. We have this community fund. We have these funds that we can give, and we invest in education and these other things, and we'd love to do that. And so again, we're like, okay, well, we'd love new laptops or solar or a gym, like see which one they might, and they really latched onto the gym. No expectation on our part, but we had been out to present to their group. And the fund that they had set up, it did give a lot of money, but it was given about $2 million a year to various organizations. So they didn't think that a gym would fit in with what they were able to do at that time. Well, then, this is a rare example of the California government helping us out. They ended up deciding that the tribe could use, they don't pay taxes. They have what are called compact credits. The state had been deciding what they had to use them for. Well, all of a sudden they said, okay, they can direct those funds however they want. So all of a sudden they had a separate giving fund that was able to give $10 million a year. And so right as we get the gift for the Performing Arts Center, we followed up with them and we said, hey, and there's some element of nobody really wanted to be the first to give these major gifts. And we said, hey, we got this gift for the Performing Arts Center. We know that there's going to be some construction savings if we build that at the same time as a gym. No expectation, but would you be interested, would you be willing to consider giving us a gift to build the gym? And they said, okay, we need you to come out and talk to us about it. So I got to go out there, and one of my students, I was teaching summer school geometry at the time. I had 4 students in my summer school geometry class, and one of them was Shayla Durham. Shayla was a member of the community out there, and so they had asked for Shayla to come with me for the pitch. So I got one of my, she's the sweetest girl ever, going into her sophomore year. She's going to be a part of me to make this final pitch, right? And we're getting ready to go in, and I said, Shayla, have you ever asked for a donation from this group? She goes, yes, Mr. Smith, I have. I said, okay, did you get it? She said, yes, I have. I said, okay, so you're 1 for 1. We got a good chance here. So we went in, and they had some questions about, just the design and everything. And then they said, hey, we want to do this. We want to support you. They asked for very little recognition. It was one of the most and so we have an anonymous donor and now another group that care about the school, neither of which are seeking recognition for these gifts. And now we can get both projects started, right? So again, we're just on our knees praising God. And we get about a year into the planning process or so, and we realize we have $5 million, but of course, the builders, even though Jim's got them in a headlock or whatever, it's like they go, hey, it's going to be X amount of square foot to build a gym. So that's what we asked for the gifts for, right? And if any of you are builders, Hamlin would never do this. Monley Hamlin Construction, plug for them. But they go, oh, you wanted like a gym floor? Oh, you wanted like a stage? You wanted lights? Oh, that's a whole different story. Oh, yeah, that's going to... So all of a sudden, we don't have enough money to build these projects, but we have the donations. We've got $5 million, and now, again, we're back in this situation where we're like, all right, we're going to have to try to issue bonds. We're going to have to try to finance this thing. And so, we're kind of stressing out. And again, so our saint from the Nevada Community Fund reaches out again. Hey, are you guys around? This is a couple years after the first gift. I want to meet with you again. So she comes and meets with us, and she said, hey, it's a tie. The largest gift I've ever given an organization. Here's another $2.5 million. We want you to build these projects. We started a campaign called Our Future Is Now. If any of you gave to that, we raised another $800,000 or so. And God was able to build these buildings. I reminded the high schoolers, I got to share some of this with them on Wednesday. And I reminded them, I said, these are miraculous things. These are not common, not typical. It's incredible. But I told them, and I would tell, everybody here, but it's not really about the buildings, right? The buildings are amazing. The gym is beautiful. If you get a chance to look at it, it's not quite the plastic sport court at the the fairgrounds, but it's not about that. It's about them. It's about the kids. It's about the families. It's about all of us that get to pour in here and get to try to do something in Woodland, in California, where we're educating and preparing students for college and Christian life so that they can change the world for Jesus Christ, right? That's the mission statement. And so it's been amazing. It was an amazing time. I still love being a part of things. And, I'm just so glad. My family, I don't know, and many of you probably feel this way, I don't know that we'd be here if not for Woodland Christian School. That for work, but even now, with my kids and my wife, with everything going on in this state and age, I am so blessed and so appreciative for the school and appreciative for everybody here that has poured in here and everybody that is currently pouring in here, staff. And with that, it is my privilege to welcome up our current administrator, Mr. Ryan Devine.
I gotta change the level here. Our theme for this 50th celebration has been God's faithfulness, and it's a fitting theme reflected in the stories we've been hearing from those who have experienced, I'm just gonna hold this, answered prayers in dark circumstances and timely gifts that have advanced our mission, and God's sustaining grace to renew and to revive when tempted to give up. These stories not only document a legacy of God's faithfulness to reach this community of Woodland for Christ through Christian education, they also document a legacy of faith, of service, of character and excellence in those who have gone before us. Many of you who are here this day. You haven't been perfect. They haven't been perfect, and the history of the school hasn't been without troubles, but God has been faithful. And he's been faithful to raise up a new generation that is entering into the legacy that has been passed down to us, seeking to be ever faithful to the mission of preparing students for college and the Christian life. And faithfulness to that mission means that we understand what and why of that mission. And to that end, we are currently working on a philosophy of education document that will provide the framework for our mission, creating a Christian educational institution that guards and guides our students to know Christ through his word, to communicate in a way that's winsome and gracious and respectful, to grow in discernment, to demonstrate a work ethic that is excellence-oriented, and to demonstrate social and institutional thoughtfulness, responsibility, and respect. This document will provide guidance for our professional development as a school, evaluation of our policies and our programs, and inspiration for how we can creatively and faithfully form the character of our staff and our students through Christian education. Faithfulness to that mission also means that we are actively seeking to make that mission formative in all that we do. We have already begun the process of evaluating our policies and our procedures to provide academic support and accountability, initiating an onboarding program for new staff and teachers, encouraging and structuring department and grade level and campus collaboration amongst our teachers and our administration, to foster best instructional practices, to strengthen academic rigor, and to really provide unity amongst our campus, and ensuring that we discipline in a way that brings our students to the cross. Faithfulness to the mission also means that we are actively seeking to expand and deepen and strengthen our programs in pursuit of our mission. And over the past few years, we have seen many ways in which we have sought to do that. In our arts program, even as represented by the building that is now here, our band has steadily grown, not only in high school, but also in the middle school and elementary as well. We've begun intermediate and beginning a middle school band and developing an elementary music program. Over the couple of years, we've developed a drumline program, which has been great and has been growing. It includes our middle school. We have a choir middle school. Our theater continues to grow and provide excellent musicals and dramas, one that'll be happening this Christmas. Our athletic program continues to develop the character of our students through athletics. Along the way, we have had competitive success as well. We have summer sports programs, middle school sports program that feeds into our high school. We have now boys and girls golf, which is great, and we continue to develop our facilities to provide improved athletic opportunities and fan experience. Our FFA program, which is now in our 11th year, is continuing to grow. We added, I'm sure you've seen, the greenhouse out there. We're reviving our garden as well, and we're encouraging our students in their exploration of careers and vocational opportunities in the ag industry. And Lord willing, over the next few years, we'll develop an additional ag mechanics track that includes welding. So if you're interested in something like that, supporting something like that, please talk to me. All of this that we've done has not been possible without faculty and staff who are dedicated to the mission of Woodland Christian, because they're dedicated to working for the good of the next generation of our community. We have a preschool and elementary staff who have been actively receiving and loving and students coming in from our community and laying that strong foundation. We have a middle school staff, including support staff and coaches who weather and calm the storm of middle schoolers. We have a dedicated high school staff that includes our support staff and coaches that seek to challenge our students to not be conformed to this world, but to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. We have our business and our maintenance staff who run behind the scenes, keep us running behind the scenes, and keep us focused on pursuing our mission. I am very grateful for the people that I work alongside of every day. They have been an embodiment of God's grace to me, because working in Christian education is not easy. That's why it's been so good to hear from those of you who were here from the beginning. First, it's good to know that there's nothing new under the sun. What we experience today is what you've experienced in the past. There will always be challenges and there will always be struggles. But your stories also show us that beyond those challenges and in the midst of those struggles, our God is faithfully working, and that's encouraging. And as we celebrate our 50th anniversary, let us do so in the spirit of Psalm 71. I just want to read before I turn it over to Dave Hargadon. Psalm 71 says, "My mouth will tell of your righteous acts, of your deeds of salvation all the day, for their number is past my knowledge. With the mighty deeds of the Lord God I will come. I will remind them of your righteousness, yours alone." So as we come here this evening, this weekend, let us give all glory to him and his faithfulness in what is represented here at Woodland Christian. Dave.
Thanks, Jack. We're a little off track, but we're going to get out to lunch. And I brought some notes up here for those that have who know anything about me. And if you were out at the cross earlier today, you know I cry at a drop of a hat. Like when God moves, I just bawl. I've been down there just holding and my kids can attest to this, right? I just become a bit of a mess. So the notes help me to stay kind of focused, also helps me to stay on track with the time that we have. And I've got a few what I think are important things to maybe share with you guys. So before I share any words about the future, I want to just take a moment to recognize a few people that are with us today. First, we had several, they're not sponsors, they're just people who gave to make this celebration possible. It was the deep desire of our committee to try to make this as reasonable as possible for people to come and not feel like it would cost an arm and a leg to just celebrate over a weekend. And they're on the back of your program. They're not looking for applause or anything like that, but I just do want to recognize Johnson Manufacturing, Monley Hamlin Construction. They didn't need your plug, Justin. Chaudhry Private Security Services, our boosters, Blue Line Training and Consulting, and Calvary Baptist for your faithfulness. We also had an anonymous donor give to this very project, which helped us enormously to kind of make this stuff happen, okay? I also want to recognize the members of First Baptist Woodland, otherwise known as Life Point Church with an E, which I appreciated at the 150th because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's kind of one of the cool things about the church. There are people here that actually helped construct this campus. Told you. One of them said, he came up to me yesterday, he said, he came up to me in the barbecue line and he said, like, I made it. You know, like, he could get to this point, right? So if you were part of the original construction of the campus, or if you supported those people who were building this project, like if you were here, you would have seen a whole core of people serving meals every day. If you supported that whole project financially, if you could just stand up so we could thank you. Yeah. This 50th celebration is just as much a part of what, you know, we're celebrating you. We have, you know, the foundation is Jesus Christ. We're constantly, as Cody said, we're building a foundation upon other people who have been faithful. And we just want to say thank you. I also want to recognize our former staff and alumni who are here. So if you're a former staff member or alumni, if you could stand up and, yeah, be proud. Let's go, yeah. I know firsthand what it takes to, you know, work and be a part of, you know, this ministry, and we're grateful for you. And finally, I just want to recognize our current staff. Not everybody's here. They're working hard through the week, but if you're a current staff member, if you or a current volunteer coach, if you could stand, we'd like to recognize you. Yep. I also just want to take a moment to just like reflect. We're not going to have a moment of silence, but I would like to just reflect. There are people who've gone on to be with the Lord. You know, who couldn't be here today. Original members of First Baptist Church. I think of some of our staff members that we've lost. You know, there are you know, people who just like serve so well faithfully, who've gone on to be with the Lord. I think of some of our students and some of our parents that this school is ministered to. I mean, we're the closest thing some of our families have to a church. You know, we've had funerals in this building. And it's not, we're proud of that. It's just, I'm just recognized that, you know, this is a special moment that we have here today. So there are too many parents, too many staff members. They're like way too many people for me to kind of go down the list with the time that I have, which is now about 5 minutes. But there are 3 people I need to mention by name for a reason I will express. This whole weekend wouldn't have been possible without Debbie Simpson and Megan Plamondon. Please stand. I think as it turned out, I was supposed to lead this group, and I quickly said, no way, and I reached out to them, and you guys did an outstanding job, and we're grateful for your service. It was a team effort for sure, but not without your leadership. The other person I want to recognize is someone I don't think is here today, because I think she's actually cooking spaghetti. That is Donna Wandler, who has been, been with the school for 33 years and has been cooking spaghetti or being a part of the spaghetti. She said she actually took over for you, Mr. Searles. I think you were a part of it. I don't know, but you guys are all pointing to each other. But anyway, I just want to recognize that. Repeatedly in God's word, we're called to remember. We are a people prone to forget. And some of the stories that have been shared, it's just really good to be reminded of God's faithfulness. And so I just want to kind of encapsulate some of the things you heard, and then we're going to look to the future, okay? So first, Woodland Christian School was founded as a ministry of First Baptist Church of Woodland, who had a vision of reaching kids and their parents with the gospel through the ministry of Christian education. God used people in my life, but specifically this ministry, to point me, a sinner in chief, to come to know Jesus Christ. Yeah, I mean, it's like I was the guy who said, you have to be born again? You are crazy. And here I am, right, speaking to you today. And God continues to do that time and time and time again, where he could use someone like me who can barely fix a backed up sink. This is a true story. I helped put the maintenance building together. I was up on a scissor lift with no business being up there, but they, like Justin, they were desperate. Mr. Henderson, you go up and tighten a few things, and by God's grace, that building is still standing. In 2009, when the school and the church separated, which is like clearly a work of God, we cannot underestimate that time. It was a desperate time, I think, for both ministries. God was faithful. Here we are with Debbie and Jack thinking, we're going to create a school board, and how's this going to work? The church and everything, and yet today we are building upon that foundation, reaching kids with the gospel day in and day out. And Cody, I know that for you, stepping into shoes, which you shared, last week, we are really grateful for our partnership with the church as it stands today, and really appreciative of that. When God called me here to be the Director of Operations and Development, never did I ever dream that some guy who had a background in law enforcement and could never, I want to repeat, I could never sell a candy bar to anybody. Like, I was a kid, if I had a team, I'd rather just pay for the entire box than to go ask my neighbor for anything. Somehow, Justin and I, it's a work of God's grace, we end up being in this building today with all of the miracles that have taken place. We have a new elementary school campus, the construction of the gym and theater, the new preschool, the learning center, the FFA stuff, which you'll see in our tours. But when we look back, on the school's ministry, I was reminded of what Jim Locosmo said about a week ago. I'm going to paraphrase, Jim, but in essence, you said, we are a ministry that is, formed by sinners. We have a bend to forget. We have a bend to do things that are contrary to God's word. And in that process, people can be hurt. And we can fall short. And this 50th, for some, may be a time of hurt and may be a time of pain in some regard. And I just want to say, it's just in my nature. I'm sorry. I mean that genuinely. And I pray that God uses this time, if that's anyone here or anyone who couldn't come, that God would just heal that. And that, I can tell you unequivocally for Ryan and myself, we may make a mistake, but we desperately want to learn and grow. But I just wanted to get that out there as we go forward. So today, when you look at today, so we looked at the past, let's look at today. 50 years later, God continues to work. Chapels in here every week. If you wonder, are we still doing chapels? Yeah. It's a little more rowdy than this, but we do chapels every week. We continue to share the gospel through the ministry of Christian education. This ministry continues to boggle my mind. People come to send their kids to school here who basically have no opinion or affiliation with any religiousness, and we get to share the gospel with them. And then the kids bring the gospel home, and then they ultimately change the lives of their parents. I mean, the stories of this are numerous. It is a great ministry. Just last week, we had 3 students get baptized that are part of this ministry. We've used these people, used our facilities to see people get married, church gatherings, funerals, community meetings, and more. During COVID, remember COVID? We transformed, when I mean me, it was an entire effort, transformed this into a parade route for our community. And it was like Field of Dreams. And today we have over 900 students attending this school. So in true form, I've taken a long time to get to the main point of what I wanted to share, which is the future. So what can you expect for the future of Woodland Christian School? Now I'm going to get serious and get in your business. We are going to continue to preach the gospel as long as we live. We may not do it perfectly, but we are not going to compromise on the gospel, and we are not going to compromise on the truth of God's word. We will continue to point parents and their kids to the only truth that matters, and that is the truth that's found in God's word. We are going to continue to seek excellence in our academics, our athletics, the arts, and everything in between. We will continue to partner with our parents and guardians to provide children for their great education, and so this is really important. We are going to continue to recognize the parents' God-given right to be parents over kids. That will never change as long as I'm a part of this school. That is what we are going to do moving forward. Lastly, we're going to make Woodland Christian School as affordable as possible for every student who wants to attend so we can prepare them for college and Christian life. It is still important today, as it was to Jack, that we try to make this ministry available to every kid and every family possible. That is near and dear to our hearts. We believe the next major initiative for our school is to honor our staff, who in most ways, if not every way, are missionaries of a local church. Since the beginning, our staff have made significant financial sacrifices to serve in this ministry. You guys who are here know full well what you sacrificed. Even though we have a new facility, it doesn't mean a thing if we don't have followers of Jesus Christ here educating kids and pointing them to the cross. Nationwide, there are teaching and staffing shortages, and we as a ministry are even more hamstrung by the fact that many of our staff are making 40 to 50%, maybe even more in some cases, less than their counterparts in the public sector. With inflation and statewide mandates that are imposed upon us, it is almost impossible to make any significant change with our staff without making WCS tuition unaffordable and turning Woodland Christian School into an elitist school, which is I don't mean that negatively. God bless those schools that can charge $30,000 a year. That's just not part of our DNA. So I thought this would be, so our thought is that we would create an endowment fund whose primary purpose is to improve wages and benefits for our staff. Our goal is to raise $3 million for this initiative over the course of 3 years, but we think we could actually raise maybe upwards of $8 million. An endowment would allow us to honor our staff without having to raise tuition costs for every family moving forward. An endowment of $3 million would give us about $105,000 in additional money that we could pour into staff and actually have it grow over time. Our phase 1 efforts are to get our staff up to 90% of what they could make in the public sector. This would allow us to also stabilize tuition for our families and still provide their children with a great education. This doesn't mean that we're not, so if you're a current school family, this doesn't mean we're not going to still raise tuition, because we are. But we can't, we just can't go and say, hey, we're just going to raise tuition 30%, right? It doesn't work that way. What happens if we reach phase 1? We go to phase 2. We are going to invest in our current ministry, our programs, theater, the arts, athletics. Our athletic teams are doing great. Our band, Mr. Winstead up at the top. I mean, it's just crazy to see what's transpired over time, but they need more to do their programs. And then phase 3, if we reach phase 2, then we dream about other things, like maybe a new high school, maybe a science ag building, going back to some of the programs. Our staff, the way God worked it out, we invested a lot of time and effort in our buildings. I feel a strong conviction that we need to invest back in our staff. So here's what I want you to do. What I need you to do, and I know some of you are worried because you think I'm going to ask you for money, and I'm not. We are very intentional about not doing that for you. We did not want to commingle a message. We're here to celebrate. But what I do need you to do is I need you to pray. And I need you to pray big time that God would make it clear to us as a school if this is a direction we need to go. We've not pulled any triggers, so for the staff that are here, this is, the release of information about what we're dreaming about. But we also need you to provide us feedback. And that feedback could come in any form, like, Dave, you're crazy. Justin can share with you that I have crazy ideas that happen all the time, and some of them are not good. He didn't move on a lot of things I suggested. But if you think, man, this is a great idea, this is not, we'd love to hear about it. You'll get an email from us that has a link to be able to share your thoughts and feelings about this, including whether or not you would even partner to give towards this initiative without having to sign on a dotted line. There's no twisting of arms as we go forward here. But this is an important initiative, and our staff need it. They deserve it. And I feel, for the people who gave everything for us to even be here, I want to help you too. I don't know how that's going to happen, but it's something that we need. So our hope and goal is that we would have the clarity we need to formally announce this initiative by the end of the year. So we're doing like a soft launch, telling you about what's possible, and then we will reach back out to you later. There will be another call. There will be another time. There will be a conversation. I don't mind having them. All we do is follow the Bang-Oric model. And I didn't know Jack was going to share this. We simply tell you what God is doing in our hearts. We simply tell you what our needs are, and God will do the rest. If he's going to move in people's hearts, it's going to move. But we certainly would covet your prayers. So now, realize we're getting close. I'm going to have Gary come up here, and I'll close my remarks with this. I shared this with you earlier. I hope the people 50 years from now will look back at this video or look back at time. I won't be here. I feel pretty confident about that. And they'll rejoice with as much rejoicing as you have today in God's faithfulness. He is faithful yesterday. Today, he'll be faithful moving forward. We'll just keep impacting lives. It's going to be an awesome thing. So, Gary, if you could come up, we're going to close in Doxology. A couple reminders. There's lunch afterwards. So, if you have a band, you're getting lunch. If you're not, you're like, oh, I didn't get a band. Go up to the front counter and get a band. We have tours at 1. We have a carnival in the afternoon, and then we have spaghetti dinner this afternoon. So thank you for being here. Gary, if you could close us out, that'd be great.
One of the great privileges I had when I was teaching full-time was during graduation to stand up here in full robe and lead in the Doxology. I expect y'all are believers in this group. Let's see how loud we can sing it. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise him, all creatures here below. Praise him above, ye heavenly host. Praise Father, Son, and Holy